If you've ever dreamt of seeing your name in the credits of a major fashion magazine, I'm talking like Elle, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, then this is your step by step. Because the reality is that no one is coming to discover you, but you can make it happen. And I'm gonna tell you how. In this video, we're gonna cover the difference between submissions and commissions, what your proposal to a magazine actually needs to include, styling timelines, and also like what magazines actually expect from fashion photographers. And also we're going to talk about budgeting, exposure, and whether you should actually shoot for magazines and whether you should shoot for free or not. And I'm also going to show you one of my secret tips for knowing exactly what to pitch and when. There's a bit of a myth floating around that I think that most artists and photographers seem to absorb, which they think, or we think, that we need to wait to be discovered. That it is way more valid as an artist, as a creative, if the people come to us. If we don't take initiative, it's like we're more valuable or cooler if we don't advocate for ourselves, if we wait to be discovered. And I know that's the dream. I get it. I totally understand. We all would just love for someone to stumble upon our work and say to us, wow, like you're the best we've ever seen. You're incredible. We want to work with you. And it does happen, but it's very rare. The reality is for 99% of creatives, fashion photographers, artists, is that we need to be the ones to go out there, share our work, show it off to the right people, put it in front of their eyes, like literally put it in front of them and advocate for ourselves and tell them why they should want to work with us and why they should want to hire us. We need to lead the process, and I think that it can be very empowering to know that as creatives, we are taking control of our careers. I understand the idea that it might be nice to just lay back and wait for someone to come to us, but the reality is you could be waiting forever. So today is going to be very pitching heavy. We're going to be talking a lot about putting yourself in front of the right people so that you can make your dreams come true. Before we go into any of the how-to of that, I do want to quickly go over the difference between a submission and a commission, because they are two different avenues on getting published, and neither is good or bad, neither is right or wrong. A submission is when you already go out and shoot an editorial off your own back. And if you don't know what an editorial is basically a visual story that showcases clothing on models or like just products. Editorials can also be still life editorials. They don't have to be shot on a model, but they are telling some kind of a story, and in that story is the product that is being showcased. The difference between a submission and a commission is a submission shoot is something that you do off your own back and then send to magazines, and you ask them if they would like to publish it after it's already been shot. This is how most fashion photographers start getting published. It was how I started getting published. I started sending my work out as submissions years and years ago, probably 15 years ago. I started sending little shoots I was doing with friends off to very, very tiny independent online magazines, and a few of them were kind enough to take my work on and publish it and share it. And that was how I got started with submissions. Fun fact, if you've been around for a really long time, you may remember I used to actually run a little online magazine, which actually ended up being a print magazine called Atlas Magazine. Maybe I'll put a few little photos here of the covers. Let me know if you remember this. If you do, let me know in the comments. It's very old. It's been no longer for a very long time. So I have a lot of experience in magazines, both having run one myself, but also having submitted to magazines as well. So a submission is essentially that you are sending your work in to a magazine and asking them if they want to publish it. It's an easier way in a lot of the time because they can already see what you've done. They already can see the results, so there's less risk involved for the magazine. However, submissions can be tricky because unless you really know the magazines that you're wanting to work with very well, it can be really hard to know what they need. And we'll also talk about this in more depth, but with magazine commissions, one of the benefits is getting a pull letter. And a pull letter is a letter that a magazine gives a photographer or a stylist, which essentially is saying to PR agencies that they are commissioning you, the photographer, to create an editorial story for an upcoming issue. How editorials work in the fashion industry is stylists borrow clothing, they borrow the samples of clothing from PR agencies who represent brands. And that is how we get the most recent collections that are not necessarily even out in shops yet in the editorial pages of the magazine. Now, it's really hard to get clothing for magazine shoots unless you have a pull letter, which is why submissions can be trickier, because if you don't have the right clothing, especially if we're aiming for the high caliber magazines like the Vogues, the Elle's, the Harper's Bazaars, those things, they will not publish anything that doesn't feature clothing that is either going to be on sale shortly or is in the season collections right now. Anything that was sold previously that is on sale now, that is a year old, doesn't get used. And that is just the reality. Magazines are promoting and selling collections for designers that will be coming out soon or are on sale already. So they don't want to feature old clothing unless they're doing a very special story about their archives, or they're doing a special story about vintage clothing or secondhand fashion. Those things are happening more and more because of the rise of recycled fashion and people wanting to be more ethically and economically and environmentally friendly. So we are seeing more things like that, but it's still harder to get published with those kinds of things. So that is the real benefit of getting a commission, is that when you send a proposal to a magazine and you say, I want to be published by you, and they love the idea and they want to commission you and they say yes, you can ask for a pull letter, which you can then give to a stylist who can then use the pull letter to go and get clothing from PR agencies. So you can see the conundrum, right? Like, it's easy to get a submission shoot published because you're just sending the work and they're already they're like, wow, amazing. Or you can get a commission, and that is much easier once you have it to produce the shoot, but it's harder to get the commission in the first place. So it's your choice really which route you want to go down. If I was getting started right now, I would work on starting to get my work published through submissions. And yes, there is the catch-22 of well, how do you get the clothing? There are ways around getting recent or, the current clothing for submission shoots. It is possible. And especially if you're aiming to get published by perhaps some of the smaller magazines, maybe you're doing an online article, they don't necessarily need to be quite as current clothing. So there is definitely a way to do it. A lot of people, when they're getting started, they do work with stylists who are up and coming, who are more willing to do sort of buy and returns, which is basically where they buy the clothing and then return it. It is a thing. And then the other thing is working with a stylist who has enough connections with PR agencies who can just borrow clothes without a pull letter. It does happen, it is possible, it's not as easy, but there are ways around it. So getting published in the magazine is not easy. We're not going to beat around the bush, and I'm not going to lie to you and pretend to you it's an easy thing to do, but it is totally possible because I've done it. My very first Elle shoot that I ever did was actually off the back of them wanting to publish a submission shoot that I sent them. Long story short, I sent them a submission shoot that I had done with a small group of a team, and a different magazine said they wanted it, and I always work on a first come, first serve basis. So I gave them the shoot, and then about 3 weeks after I had sent the submission, Elle Croatia came back to me and they were like, "We love it, we want to publish it." But it had already been taken, so I had to say no to Elle Croatia, which was heart-wrenching because I'd never had a big name before. But instead of going back and saying, no, I can't do it, I went back to them with a new concept, and that's how I ended up getting my first Elle shoot. That's a story for another day. How we got the clothing for the shoot that Elle Croatia did want to publish was the stylist basically did a lot of buying and returning, and she was buying current collections that were on sale of like not high end brands, but I'd say mid high end brands. When you are doing buying and returning, you do not want to be using like Zara or H&M, those kinds of brands, because they're just not what the magazines are going to want to publish most of the time. You can get away with it sometimes, but most of the time they won't. The other thing you can do is go to very small designers and work with up and coming designers. A lot of magazines are very interested in publishing work of up and coming designers. So can you get in touch with local up and coming designers in your city? Can you go to the local universities and work with their graduate show collections? Things like that can get you traction. Try to think outside the box and don't take no for an answer. If you want to get published by magazines, there are ways to do it, no matter where you live, and like you can get there. So hopefully this is going to help you even more. So let's say you want to do a proposal for a commission shoot. How do you do that? What would a magazine want or need to see from you? The first thing that they need to see is a clear concept. So you need to have a strong idea and you need to really lay it out for them in terms of what the shot list is going to look like, what the mood board's going to look like. And if you haven't already, go back and watch last week's video or listen to last week's podcast all about how to plan a shoot from A to B, because it really does go over how to plan a shoot in loads of depth. And you essentially want to take the outline of that shoot plan and put it into a proposal and then share that with the magazine. That is how they get a really clear idea of what they can expect from you. The next thing, of course, like I talked about in that video in that previous episode, is you want to put together a mood board. In that proposal, you need to make it visually clear and written textually. You need to make it very clear verbally what they are going to receive. So the way that I do that is I start a proposal with like a general mood board of the general idea of the entire shoot. Then I break it down. So I go into the editorial styling of what they can expect to have, the makeup and the hair, the type of models we're going to be casting, the shot list, what they can expect, the lighting, and really demonstrate what that shoot is going to look like as a whole. The other thing that you want to try and include, if you can, although it's not absolutely essential, is who is the rest of the team that's going to be working on this shoot with you. If you already know who the stylist is going to be, include that in the proposal. If you know who the hair and makeup is going to be, include that in the proposal. If you don't yet have the team on board though, don't worry about it too much. I have booked plenty of shoots for magazines where I didn't have a team assembled. I literally just had an idea, put together a proposal, sent it to magazines, and then gathered the team once I had the magazine on board. But it can help them to see who you're going to be working with. They can see then the quality of the team, and they can get an idea of what they can expect, not just from you, but from everyone involved, which I think can be an advantage and can be helpful. You also really want to make sure that when you're creating the styling part of the mood board, that it is going to be of the relevant season that they are going to be looking to publish at that time. So let's say that you are planning a spring-summer shoot and it's going to be for spring-summer collections. You need to include references to styling that are going to be of that spring-summer collection. You don't want to plan a shoot that's like for July, but include clothing from February. So just be really, really clear about what the styling is going to look like. Again, the styling isn't going to be your job necessarily unless you are really trying to do everything yourself. It's not going to be your domain. So generally, once I have a magazine on board, I work with a stylist who then puts together a styling board, which then gets sent to the magazine and they approve that styling board. And it will detail not necessarily a guaranteed list of what we're going to have on the shoot, because let me tell you, you don't always know what you're going to get until the day of, because we're working with samples. Sometimes there's one sample for the entire world, and you don't always know if it's going to be in your local area or available in time for your shoot. So PRs will generally send you as much as they can, as closely to what they can give you that they say they are, but they can't always guarantee it. So you can give the magazine an idea of what they're going to be having in their pages, but you can't always guarantee it. And they know that. So they understand how it works. More than anyone, magazines know how it works. So, but just try and spell it out as much as possible. You know, is the styling all going to be red? Make sure that you're including all red clothing in the styling page. And then finally, you also definitely want to spell out what the location is going to be. If you're shooting at a location, show photos of the location. If it's going to be a location house, show what the location house will look like. If you are going to be in a studio, what is the set of the studio going to look like? Are you going to have set design? Are you going to have props? List all of those things out and make it really easy for them to see. You kind of want to treat the proposal as if you're sending it to a baby, and you're not. Like, they're very clever people, they know exactly what they're doing, but you want to really think to yourself, if I was sending this to someone who had no idea how shoots work or what they are or why they are put together like this, that they would understand, because you've spelled everything out. You really do want to go into as much depth as you can, but make it very visual and very skimmable. What you don't want is walls of text. No one is going to read a huge paragraph of text in your proposal. And you put this entire proposal into a PDF, by the way, a like beautifully designed one. I have a template that I use that I just sort of rinse and repeat the template, but it's mostly photos with a little bit of text, just sort of, you know, styling, autumn, winter 25. Like, that might be what it would say. That would be kind of it. If you're not sure what magazines need at what times of year, I actually have an amazing resource that I can highly recommend. It is my pitching calendar for 2025, and it outlines what you should be pitching at what time of year. It's only £9, and it's like a Notion dashboard, and it tells you exactly what to be pitching in the month of June, what to be pitching in the month of July. And I've made it so that you know in July what a magazine would be looking for in terms of pitches in that month. Hint, it's normally what's going to be out in a few months' time, but I really spell it out for you so that you can have this calendar in front of you and go, cool, I want to pitch to Vogue next month. I'm going to make sure that I'm pitching for the month of the year that Vogue is going to be looking for stuff. So if you're interested in that, the link is in the description below. Have a little look. As I said, it's £9 and it's really helpful. Okay, the next thing we need to talk about is budgeting and the realities of costs of shoots. What you want to ask yourself when you're planning a shoot and you're planning a proposal for a magazine is, realistically, are you going to be covering the costs of the shoot yourself, or are you going to be asking the magazine to cover the costs for you or contribute to the costs? Most early stage submissions, especially, are completely self-funded, and I treat the shoots that I do on a submission basis and often on a commissioned basis as a part of my marketing plan. They are how I create work, which I can then use to pitch, which I can use to share on social media, post on LinkedIn, take to portfolio events. They are my marketing material. And as pretty much any business needs to do, they invest in their marketing, and it's the same for us. We need to invest in our marketing. However, some shoots are going to be very cheap to fund and some are not. Things like hiring a location house, set design, prop hire, certain model casting that you might want. Maybe you're going abroad. Some of these things are obviously going to cost more, and it's up to you to decide if you are willing to self-fund, if you can self-fund, and or if you need to get a magazine on board that has budget. Now, of course, if you are pitching to a magazine and requesting budget, you are going to come across a little bit more pushback, and you're going to need to work a little bit harder, and you're going to need to make that proposal absolutely outstanding. And I would say that if you are a beginner at pitching to magazines and getting published in magazines, you probably don't want to start with a really massive production. I would start with something simple, low budget that you can create for very cheap. And let me tell you, some of my most successful, most beautiful photo shoots that I've done for really big publications have cost me almost nothing. Like literally almost nothing. I am really, really good at doing a lot of shoots in my local area near to where I live. All I need to do is often cover the cost of maybe the model's travel, maybe some food and some snacks for the team, but everything else is already covered because I own all my own equipment. If I'm shooting on location, I probably don't need extra lighting. I am always paying for an assistant. Every shoot I do, that is a guarantee, but it's often not a huge cost. So don't be afraid to be scrappy and think outside the box with your editorials and your ideas. You can do things for very cheap if you need to and if you want to. And a really good example, I shot for Harper's Bazaar Malaysia. This was a submission shoot, and I did this in my living room with no costs. I just used a white backdrop paper that I'd had for years, a backdrop stand, the same one I've still got now. I've had it for about 10 years. And the team came over from London. They stayed at my house for the day. I picked everyone up at the station myself. I got snacks for everyone. We all had lunch. And we did the entire shoot with natural light. So it cost me literally nothing. I think the only cost I had was the film, and it was because I chose... No, I'm lying. I didn't even shoot film. The whole shoot was free. So you can do it. You don't need to spend a ton of money to do an incredible shoot. Trust me. That being said, getting budget from a magazine is possible. It's happened to me plenty of times. Often I've gotten more money and budget towards a shoot than I would realize. So how this works is, let's say you know that you have a proposal that needs some funding. You're going to have to hire a location house, or you need to hire a really big studio and extra equipment. This is where you need to go in to the magazine, not for the first email. You want to see if they're interested. And if they are interested, have an honest conversation about the costs of bringing this to life. You know, you can just go and say, in order to make this happen, we will need XY amount of budget. And then you just have to ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. And if you don't ask, you will never know. So I'm always of the opinion that there's no harm in asking. Ask the question. If the answer is no, we can then take it from there. But at least I knew because I asked. Getting budget from a magazine is usually much more likely once you've already done a few bigger magazine shoots. So don't be afraid about this. It can happen. Normally how it works is you do a few submission shoots, then you eventually start getting commissions, but you do like a few completely free commissions, and then you start to be able to ask for some budget and some money. So that's how it's happened for me. Let me know if it's been different for you, or if you're watching this and you know other people who've had completely different experiences, because it's not a linear thing. Like there's so many ways to go about this. I'm just sharing everything that's worked for me and how I see things working generally. If you're wondering why you should do free editorial submissions, editorial commissions, just shooting for magazines at all, first of all, you're probably not watching this you're probably not watching this video if you're not interested in shooting for magazines. And with that being said, I don't think you have to shoot for magazines anymore. I don't think it's essential. But if you're like me, a lot of photographers want to shoot for magazines. For me, it was my biggest dream for such a long time to get published in magazines. And the fact that I did it and I've done it is incredible. But I don't think you need to be published in magazines to be successful and get paid clients in the long term. That being said, being published in major magazines, especially the ones we're talking about, like the Vogues, the Elle's, the Harper's Bazaars, they come with a certain amount of clout and social proof. You're like boosted by being associated with those kinds of magazines. So it does come with a benefit and an advantage in that sense. It also, I think, gives you leverage for future paid work. You can definitely, again, be having that social proof means you can probably charge a bit more, you can increase your rates, and you can show clients that you're really trusted by the top of the industry, and that means something. So it does bring a good piece, a good element to being published by these magazines, whether you are paid or not. And finally, I'm going to end with a few quick fire bonus tips, and these are things that I tend to get asked a lot. And if you have any follow-up questions at the end of this video, please leave them in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer them. One of the questions is, can I pitch to multiple magazines at once? Everyone will give you a different answer on this. My answer is yes, because if you wait to pitch to one magazine at a time, trust me, you will probably be pitching to magazines that one specific idea forever, because it can take a really long time to get a magazine to say yes. What I do is I pitch the idea to multiple magazines at once, and then I work on a first come, first serve basis. So I would email the proposal to multiple magazines. They then come back to me, and it's the first person that gets it. If multiple publications come back to me and they all want to publish the idea, I go back to them with a new idea that's similar. This is common practice. The magazines know how it is. If they are slow to respond and they liked the idea, it's kind of not your fault that you were commissioned by someone else. So that's my take on it, whether you agree or disagree. Another thing is to choose magazines that align with your style and the direction that you want to take your career. There's no point in trying to get published by magazines that are completely different to your look and your style and the things that you're interested in. So don't waste loads of time pitching yourself and sending off commission ideas to magazines that aren't relevant to you. It's just going to take you too long, and it's just not worth it. I would also really encourage you to keep your submissions and your commission proposals very simple, very clean. Try not to overdo it. Like I said, no massive walls of text. Keep the mood boards interesting but not overly stuffed. And keep your emails short and sweet. I actually now embed my proposals into my website, because I'm finding that more and more when I send PDF proposals to companies and brands, they're going straight to spam. So that's my recent pitching tip for you, is I just embed the PDF straight onto my website, send the website link to the person on the other end via email, and that works way better for getting through. It's also just really easy. They just click the link, it's open, they can scroll through, done. And then another thing you can do is also use your past shoots or your past work as kind of proof of concept. So let's say you want to shoot something in a similar style of lighting to a previous shoot you've done. You can use those images in your proposal. You can literally say, this is an example of a lighting style similar to what I want to do that I've done before. You can see that I can execute it. Just kind of reassuring the client that you can do this in multiple ways. So, to round everything up, do not wait to be discovered. You need to go to the magazines if you want to be commissioned, if you want to shoot for them, if you want to get published, you need to go to them. You can shoot for magazines even if you've never done it before. It might just be that you have to go up the ladder slowly. It doesn't need to take years and years and years, but maybe you're not going to go straight to British Vogue. I've still not ever shot for British Vogue, one day. But start where you feel comfortable. Maybe it's an online independent magazine, and then you work your way up. Another little tip I need to leave this on: do not ever pay to get your work published. There are magazines out there that will ask you to pay to have your work featured. That's a no-no. We do not pay to have our work featured. Just wanted to quickly touch on that. And then the only things it takes really is, do you have a strong idea? Do you have a clear concept you're pitching? And do you have the courage to pitch it? If you have all those three things, you can get published by magazines. There's nothing stopping you. That's quite literally all it takes. If you would like to know what to pitch and when to pitch it, Check out the pitching calendar, it's in the description below. It's £9. It will save you a ton of time and a ton of flapping about not knowing what to send and when. And if this video helped, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Send it to a friend if you think they would be interested in it, if it would help. And finally, just know that like you've got this. I want you to go out and create a shoot, create a proposal, send it to magazines, get it out there and get published, because it's totally doable. It's so much fun. There's nothing better than seeing your work in print, and I can't wait to hear how it goes. Send me DMs on Instagram. It's at Olivia Bossert Education. Come and tell me how it goes, and I will see you in the next one.